Yeah, I'll say for me personally, I'm not trying to marry last year's draft class personally. If you got Mozzie Smith right, you think he's going to be better in Zim's defense. Okay, cool. If Byron Murphy's there, I'll take him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just I'm not going to stall out and not pass on talent in this year's class because of last year's class. So I feel like you just bring in depth and let the best team win and the best players win to make this final roster. So, because me, honestly, if I'm just being fully transparent, I don't see that upside with this last year's draft class. Like, even just going through it last year, I didn't see a lot of upside. So if you get some opportunity, like you said, RJ, if you get a wide receiver like Xavier Worthy, I'm not going to say, well, we got Jalen Tolbert, let's let it work. No, you go and get a Brian Thomas Jr. and then Jalen Tolbert's just going to have to figure out, or Jalen Brooks is just going to have to figure it out. So that's where I'm at, because I'm in win now mode. I think a lot of Cowboys fans watching the show right now is win now mode. I'm not worried about players who are going to develop 3 or 4 years down the road right now. I need instant impact. And I think that's why next Thursday is going to be extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason I'm excited, is to kind of, decipher what mode they're in. Like, the all-in thing has been memed, and it's just like, it's just now this annoyance. It's no longer like this real thing that you can take anything away from. And so, like, I would be fascinated to see if they would draft Byron Murphy, just to say, like, we're willing to throw Mozzie away, like, relatively speaking. And that's what was so interesting about the CeeDee Lamb pick. I mean, and I think we all had a high level of positivity after that, thinking like, okay, they're willing to not take K'Lavon Chaisson. They're willing to completely go and pivot in whatever direction the draft ultimately sends them in. But then, I think about the draft 2 years ago, and that's what this really feels like right now is, that was the offseason where they traded Amari, they cut Lyle, they couldn't get the Gregory deal done. And then just by coincidence, their first 3 picks were Tyler Smith, Sam Williams, and Jalen Tolbert, but they totally drafted based off of best player available. And so I'm kind of concerned, but fascinated at the same time to see, are they willing to trust Mozzie Smith if Byron Murphy falls to them? Are they willing to trust Jalen Tolbert if whoever falls, after whatever happens in the first round? Because, it's a blank canvas, but not in a fun way. It's a really terrifying blank canvas, which I can't remember ever feeling this way about this team. And then when you factor in the Dak deal and the CD deal and the McCarthy 1 year or final year of his contract, like, there's no North Star that they're pointed in. So I'm excited to finally get a read where the compass is pointing.
And one thing I'll add to this about the 2023 draft class that I think kind of annoyed me is that, like, is it true that Kansas City offered a 3rd round pick to trade up in that draft to Dallas? Because if so, like, it would have been great if they would have stepped back, drafted another guy, and gotten another 3rd round pick. Like, was Mozzie Smith that high up on their board where they're like, no, we got to get this guy, we can't move off him? Like, that to me, like, man, if they could have ended up with another 3rd round pick, I think that would have been beneficial for this team.
Yeah, I mean, post-draft, there's always rumors, what if. So we don't know if anything was concrete, right? Because we always heard the rumor, right, that there's a possibility that Kansas City could have took Mozzie. And so it's like, I don't know, but you still got to draft that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you still got to draft that.
100%.
So, that's where I'm at with it. But I think that just like RJ was saying, I feel like we're going into next Thursday is like going to the grocery store hungry. And we're just going to be grabbing just random stuff off the shelves and not knowing really what's the plan, because none of us know what the plan is for the Cowboys for this year. So that's why I'm kind of just hold on tight, Cowboys.
It's a bittersweet, though, when you look at it, because of the fact that Mike McCarthy is on a 1-year contract, basically, on a prove-it deal. So he can't go into this mindset saying, well, this is going to be a 2 to 3 year project before this guy can turn the corner. He need to get made-ready guys. So this could be like what my guy said, RJ said about the 2022's draft, best player available. If we go with that mindset, whoever the BPA player is at 24, even though we are hungry, we starving, barely touching back because we didn't dance into free agency. I heard somewhere where people said that, hey, the draft is our free agency. So we're going to have to really roll our sleeves up. And Mike McCarthy, he got to stand tall in that draft room, and it's going to be a war room, and he got to say, hey, this is the guy I want, and this is the guy I need in order to keep my job here.
And I think that's the difference from this year versus last year. Like our foundation was already intact. So we were going into the draft feeling good. I mean, once we got Brendan Cooks and Stephon Gilmore, like we were kind of playing with house money. I think we played a little bit too much with our house money. But this year it's a little bit different because we haven't built that foundation of our team. Just like RJ said, CeeDee Lamb's not signed, Dak is on the one. So it's like so many different question marks with this team going into the draft. It's going to be interesting to see how things pan out.
Yeah, I like the I'm sorry, but I like the house money thing because it feels like the Cowboys, won their first couple of hands last year with the Cooks and the Gilmore trades, and then they just kind of let the night go, and they're having a couple of drinks, and they're dancing, their favorite songs are coming on, and everything's feeling great. And before they know it, they're down not just their winnings, but now they're in the red. Like now they've got less than they walked into the night with. And so that's where this whole thing. I know it's been a really negative few months, and we tweeted this at Blogging the Boys. I would say like on the 4th or 5th day of free agency, and all the responses were really negative. And I'm curious to hear what any of you say. Like the first round pick is obviously their most premium asset of the entire offseason. What is the best case scenario within the realm of practicality? Like what could happen that would totally hook you back? That would totally be like, all right, you know what? This was weird. This was sketchy, but I didn't have a choice but to trust, and we got here, and you landed the plane. All right, now let's go into Friday night because you got me back. Like I really have a difficult time coming up with what that reality is.
Well, RJ, I got one for you. If it's an offensive line day one, we will have to wait until the end of the draft in order to feel good because you need to marry that up with a running back. They can't go into this particular draft and still draft a nice offensive lineman, whoever it may be, and skip out on drafting a running back and say, hey, we got it. We got Rico. We got Deuce Vaughn. We got Royce Freeman. You can't go into that mindset. So we got to marry the offensive line, whoever we draft with pick 24, with a nice running back out of this draft. We got to in order to feel good just a little bit.
Here's what I'll say to that. I think that if they step back and draft Jackson Powers Johnson as well, I'd be like, man, look, that's the guy that I wanted this entire time. And on top of the fact that you got another draft pick on top of that.
You move down, pick up a third. I'm with you.
That to me would be
first round, second round. What you feeling with JPJ?
So I'm cool with the first round pick for him.
Okay. Straight up or not sliding back? None of that?
I draft him at 24. I know there's some questions about the medicals. Like me personally, I don't have the medicals on hand, so I don't know how serious or anything. But when I just watch his tape and just take that into account, I'm fine with drafting him at 24. But like what I would say is, Law, I do agree with you from the standpoint of this. Like if Dallas goes and they draft Barton or Powers Johnson, or even step back and draft like Zach Frazier or one of these other offensive linemen, and you match that with a Trey Benson or a Jonathan Brooks, at that point, now I'm feeling a lot better. And if you can go into the third round, maybe draft a linebacker or something, or maybe a wide receiver, because I know there's a lot of wide receivers in the draft, I'd feel a lot better. I'm still I'd still be a bit concerned with the left tackle position, no doubt about it. But my thing is, when it comes to this offensive line, is like, if you add a center and they play as well as you think you're going to play, you have a top 3 interior in football with Zach Martin, Tyler Smith, and that center. You have one of the best interior offensive lines in football, right? I think Terrence Steele will improve from last season. And at that point, like, I feel like you win with identity in the NFL. And if you can have an identity to lean back on, like, all right, we're struggling a bit here throwing the football, let's run the football. And oh, wait, we have 3 badass interior offensive linemen that we can run through the A-gap with.
Yeah, I agree. For me personally, I think the shot in the arm that RJ is kind of talking about to the fan base would be someone like a Brian Thomas Jr., right? I think if you went and just got him, it'd be like, okay, now we're excited, right? Because I think that's what Cowboys fans are really looking for. It's just something to be excited about because we haven't gotten it since that Green Bay loss. So he would be one. And then also defensively, if Leatu Latu out of UCLA was to slide to us and we grabbed him, all right, that's when Jay Tuck jumped out of his chair and say, okay, I'm starting to feel good about things. But, there's going to be some other prospects that I think me personally and some of us, who really dive into this draft would be excited about. Like if we were to get a Graham Barton, most people are probably like, Here's the
it
question
won't
mark.
move the needle as much.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, you're not going to buy no Graham Barton jerseys. You're going to be like Duke, like, but here's the question I was asking a lot of people, because when I went back and watched the conversation in the War Room last year, what is between Matthew Bergeron and Mozzie Smith, they were referring to Matthew Bergeron as a guard. They kept saying the guard. So was their mentality possibly kick Tyler Smith out? So could they be considering guard again this year? Or could they roll in with TJ Bass or probably, Chima at left guard? So there's a lot of interesting question marks. But for me, Brian Thomas would be the guy where I'm just like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm still mad. We'll see what you do day 2, but I'm not as mad. It's like when you used to get a whooping from your parents, but they'll give you McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? I'm still a little mad, but, I forgive you for now. We'll see what happens on day 2.
Personnel-wise, at the end of the day, depending on how we line things up, you're going to always still need 2 at O-line. If Tyler Smith he's already saying that he's comfortable, he loved to play at guard, at left guard, he's all pro guard. But if it was a situation and scenario that he moves to left tackle, maybe you can live with a TJ Bass. But I just look at it like this. The always will always be that you need 2 offensive linemen, because that's where our depths are at. But far as our defensive side, our interior guy right now is Mozzie. So we are razor blade thin in interior. And I don't think, and I know you guys did more homework than me on this draft process, who can we get to be a 3 or a 1 tech in the later rounds that can fill in that voided area? Because right now, Mozzie is our only true 1 tech, and Carl Davis or what have you, who's been around in the league forever. So it's going to be a difficult thing to do in digest in this particular draft, to weigh it out.
I mean, there will be a few, right? I mean, I think the huge question mark everyone's talking about is Devontae Sweat, right? What's going on with him as far as his situation? So could he be a guy that's there maybe second or the third round that you can swipe? There's some other guys like Jordan Jefferson out of LSU, so there's some of those guys. But, once again, defensive tackles just in general, it's a slow play, right? You rarely see defensive tackles just come in and, take over and dominate.
And do a Kobe Turner.
Yeah.
Like
so,
LA Rams.
So it rarely happens, right? So I think that's why me personally, I'm frustrated that you let Hankins walk away for the difference of pennies, where you could just had a guy and then you can toss a young rookie in that rotation alongside of him versus, hey, rookie, you got to figure out and you got to hit, saying week 1, because that was the same mistake I feel like they made with Jalen Tolbert. Jalen Tolbert came in to the Dallas Cowboys with higher expectations than CeeDee Lamb. He was supposed to be our Mari Cooper replacement, just like, so you kind of had that expectation. So it's a lot to place on some of these rookies, which it definitely changes the outlook when it comes to this draft.